How much time did you do in the military exactly?
4 years right out of high school. I was 17. My mom had to sign my paperwork. So 4 years right out of high school.
That was your initial contract, was a 4-year contract?
Mm-hmm. That's all I did.
Honorable discharge?
Yes.
Now, why make that decision to go to the military after high school for you?
I think for me, because I am, like I said, I've always been this type of person.
Conscious?
Yeah. So a lot of times I feel like until we've stepped in someone else's shoes, we don't really understand. So I wanted to put myself on the side of the soldier. You know, all of us are at home saying how unfair the war is, or how we go over here and we bully, or how we could be doing this. But very seldomly any of us are willing to put ourselves in those shoes to really see. This is why when people talk about the flags and they talk about the veterans, and I'm like, yeah, that's not really what we signed up to do. We signed up to protect your right to be able to either stand up or kneel or say fuck the flag. This is what we fought for. We fought for you to be able to freely do what you want to do. But then on the inside, you also realize how fucked up your government is, too, which is why I only gave them 4 years. I had learned enough. I was good to go.
Now, was this a conscious decision, like you kind of had mentioned, or was this more like a financial decision?
No, it was a conscious decision because I could have gone straight to college. Like, I could have literally gone to college. I could have gotten scholarships. I was honor society. I'm not an idiot by a long shot. But it was more of a conscious decision. I wanted to get away from home. I wanted to travel a little bit. I wanted to see the world, and I wanted to learn about different cultures. And really, honestly, you know, being a young black kid, like, that's one of the probably quickest ways to kind of see the world, you know, is through the military. And let them pay for it. Everything is on their dime. Yeah, I'm with it.
You've had other family members that were in the military previously before?
Yeah, I still have family members that are in the military. I have an uncle who did the Navy, one who did the Marines. A couple of them did the Army. So, yeah, I have family members that are still in service.
So when you chose this decision, was it a surprise to your parents to go this route? Or did they see this coming?
Nah, I think for my mom, she was just like, oh, she just knew I was going to go somewhere and get killed, and they was going to be sending me back in the body bag. I think for everybody else, they kind of pretty much was like, well, it's kind of your life. My mom is like, this is my baby, and I don't really want her getting shot at. But, you know, she didn't realize that I would be shooting at people, too.
Mm. Now, before we get into some further details, overall, was your experience a good experience or a bad experience?
With the military?
Yes.
Overall, I would say I liked the experience. I really enjoyed it. Overall, it was a good experience.
Was it an easy experience or tough experience?
It was not easy at all, but it was not as tough as I thought it was going to be.
Now let's go into some more detail. What branch did you choose and why?
Air Force, because I'm an intellectual person, and Air Force is it's a game of the minds. You don't progress in the Air Force without taking tests. You don't do anything in the Air Force without taking some type of aptitude test to see. So, and then I always grew up listening to people say Army proof, you know, and the jug heads, and I didn't want those kind of jokes. So, Air Force was pretty much always going to be my choice.
Is that, intelligence-wise, is that the toughest branch of the military to get in?
I like to think so, because everything you do, it's not about a performance. It's literally about testing. You have to test for the next rank to move forward. It's not like, oh, you just time in, because you could be in the Air Force for 4 years and still be an A1C, Airman First Class, if you don't, you're not taking the test and you're not passing the test. So I love everything about being challenged mentally. I absolutely love everything about it. So it was no-brainer for me.
You had other family members that were in that branch as well?
Nope, I was the first to go to the Air Force. So.
Wow. What was the reaction when you chose that branch? Like, because I don't know if you had other people trying to sway you to go to a different branch.
When I chose the Air Force, of course, my uncles and everything that were already like Navy and Army and Marines, like, oh, you just want to go and be lazy. And I'm like, that's so typical male stuff. And I'm like, yeah, no, I just want to use a muscle that's a little bit, tougher to live,
Did you try ROTC while you were in school and that sort of thing?
I did ROTC in school, yeah. And it was more Army-based, so I knew I wasn't going with the Army.
Now, you talked about wanting to travel and that sort of thing. Were you ended up being stationed overseas?
I got to do one tour to Saudi Arabia once. And when I say it was probably the most eye-opening because literally it's like a culture shock, like for real. Like you're out there in the desert and then the parts that you do get to go to, you see the women who walk around with their faces covered, and is it the hijab? Am I saying that right?
Sounds about right.
They have those, and also how, what's the word I'm looking for? How women are so not respected in other countries, like how they are here in America, how we have all these freedoms. We can look you in the eye when we're talking to you. Like if I have an alt with a male, I can look him straight in the face and say, look, I am in full disagreement of this. Yeah, no, they couldn't do that over there. Like, no, like you can't look them in the eye. You have to like, so I just couldn't even imagine, you know, what that was like. So for me, it was a big culture shock because I'm used to just being like, you got me fucked up.
Some Middle Eastern countries, I imagine, well, I don't know about Saudi Arabia, but some Middle Eastern countries are a little bit more easier or less strict than others. There's some that are very conservative and some that are more liberal.
Right. And so for me, because that was the only one that I, you know, for me, now I know that, you know, like you said, there's some that's a little bit more conservative, some that's a little bit stricter. I had never seen the strictness of it. Like I've seen like the conservative part of it. Oh, okay, you know, like pretty much everything is kind of fair. Like, you know, they women still kind of jump when they say jump, you know, but they still have a voice per se. But it was my first time seeing it where like for real in your face where the women did not have a voice at all. And I was like, yo, this is really a male dominated environment over here. Like even as American women, we still couldn't, you know, we can't go over there and just disrespect somebody's culture. We had to get in line. So I'm gonna stay over here with the Americans and stay on base because I ain't built like that.
Were you, did you choose that place to go on tour, or is that something they just...
Oh no, you don't get to. Sometimes you may get to choose like your first duty station, but when you're getting deployed, nah, you don't get to choose. It just kind of happens overnight. That's why they tell you always be prepared.
When it comes to being in the military, there's positive and negatives. What's the best thing about it?
The best thing about it is the sense of pride you feel, the sense of defending your people, your country. Like, you know, it's like you really feel that. You really feel like you're working for a change. It's not always, but sometimes you feel like that. And then there are days where you feel like they've been lying to us all this time, and if I can feel it on this level, I can only imagine the lies that I don't know, you know what I mean? Because there's a lot of things that we don't know. I remember when the anthrax was a big threat. We couldn't call home and tell our parents, you know, hey, you know, we had to keep, and I'm like, I want to call my mom and tell her she needs to be, you know, worried about this. So it's a lot of things that you realize on the inside. So, but the biggest part of it is just feeling like you are trying to do something versus just sitting around talking about change. You're actually trying to be proactive in the change.
What's your biggest pet peeve with being in the military?
Ooh, my biggest pet peeve is the lies. Like you realize, you know, it's a lot of deceit, you know, and because you are a person that wants to feel proactive in the fight, you realize, honestly, when you're in the military that you really don't have much control over how this thing's gonna run anyway, and you've just kind of signed up to be a tool in their little game.
Now, you were already conscious before being in the military. Did being in the military make you more conscious?
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I said, a lot of things, like I've kind of always been a person that likes to seek out things and just like further my own, because I'm always a big believer that I don't want to talk a lot about one thing. I want to talk about, I want to be able to adapt in any environment. So because I feel like that the only way to do that is some of these things you have to be hands-on with. A lot of stuff you probably can, we read a book or two, but a lot of things you have to get out there in the field and work with this stuff hands-on. So yes, it did. It was very much so an eye-opener, made me a little bit more woke.
Now, when it comes to women being in the military, there's been reports of sexual misconduct and all different types of stories resulting from that. Nightmare stories, horror stories, women in the U.S. military. You being a woman in the U.S. military, have you experienced some of these things, or did you know of women that have experienced some of these things, or?
You get your sexual harassment, don't get me wrong, but it's so much tougher to come out with stuff like that when you're in the military because they already said women don't belong. We don't belong because this is, the guns and it's the hand-on and it's the fighting. So they tell us we're too weak. So I feel like a lot of what we go through when it comes to the sexual assaults and the sexual harassment is to test us, to see, okay, so you just gonna go crying because you like a little girl, and it's like, yo, you realize you really just sexual assaulted me. So it's not like I'm just like, just like I'm just crying because you hit my arm. Like, bro, you really, so a lot of women tend to be quiet about it because they don't want to look weak, and no man wants a woman standing on the front line with them if you can't even, keep your mouth closed. So it's kind of like one of those you're damned if you do and damned if you don't type of things. But I still say, as a woman in the military, you definitely should. It doesn't make you weak. It makes them weak, actually, if they feel like that's how they have to test your strength to see if you're going to keep quiet about a sexual assault. Something's wrong with them. Nothing is wrong with you. So if you are going through something like that, do not be afraid to tell somebody.
Now, what's somebody watching this, let's say they're a female, they don't know the difference between sexual harassment, sexual assault. Are you able to define that? Yeah,
sexual assault is when someone actually physically puts their hands on you. I don't care if it's just groping your behind or slapping you. That's sexual assault. Sexual harassment is when you like, oh, your butt sure look big in this uniform, or, ooh, I like the way, that's sexual harassment. Sexual harassment is more vocal. Sexual assault is more of a physical type of thing.
So I'm guessing sexual harassment is something that's unwanted, because there could be flirting that a female may want, and that wouldn't be sexual harassment because you enjoy the comment or something like that. But I guess it's an unwanted comment, something you weren't expecting, wrong environment to say something.
Oh yeah, inappropriate times. But sexual harassment doesn't have to be reported by you. Like, I could hear you saying something to someone else, and for me that could be sexual harassment. So see, it's still one of those fine lines. This is why they tell you in the workplace, just keep it out of it, because you and I could be having a regular conversation and you could be coming on, telling me, oh, you really look nice in your uniform, or girl, I like the way you wearing that uniform. Doesn't really necessarily bother me at all. But a female standing around hears it, or a male standing around hears it, and now it becomes sexual harassment as well, even if it wasn't directed towards them.
I see.
So, yeah.
Is there any advice, female watching this may have just joined the military? Obviously, branch choice could be different circumstances, that sort of thing, but any general advice for a woman maybe looking to join the military, or is in the military already, just started? Anything you would tell them, generally speaking?
Generally speaking, I would say don't sign up trying to prove you can do everything a man can do. Sign up to prove you can do everything they can't do. Because when you get into competition of the sexes, you're going to probably always feel like you're competing, and you're going to probably always find yourself in a situation that you probably shouldn't be in if you didn't feel the need to compete. So don't sign up trying to prove that I'm here, I can do everything a man can do, because that's not what it's about. Prove that you can do everything that they can't. You know what I mean? Do it because this is what you want to do.
Was there any regrets on giving 4 years to the military? Do you, like, if you could do it all over again, would you have bypassed the military experience and just went straight to college or done something else with your time? Or are you happy that you did 4 years of the military experience, honestly?
No, I'm actually happy. I think if I could have done it any differently, I probably would have just found ways to get more money out of them. But the experience itself is probably incomparable. You know, I can't compare it to anything because I actually was out there. So when I'm having these conversations, I can speak intelligently about it and not just be talking. You know, like a lot of people just talking to be talking, but like, no, literally I experienced it. So when we get into debates about veterans and the country and the flag and all of this, like I literally can speak in a very personal, emotional, and intellectual manner about it, and also very logically as well.
Looking back, was that the right branch choice for you?
Yeah, Air Force, definitely. I wouldn't have gone either way.
Now, did you have a significant other while you were?
When I first went into the military, no. I probably got like a boyfriend once I got into the service, but he was in the service too, but I didn't have a significant other going into. I was 17, so no, I wouldn't even really think about that kind of stuff.
Did that last long?
No, not at all. You move around too much. You really move around too much, and when you're young, you're not really trying to, well, I wasn't anyway. I wasn't trying to be boggled down with anybody. You live your life, you enjoy the experiences, you take them, you know, for what they were. I just figured it's just practice for the day when I find my real man, you know.
I see. Now, you gave us some information about, or some advice, I should say, about specifically for women. But now let's just do general advice. Somebody in the military. Any, well, actually, let me ask you this. Okay, some advice here. Somebody thinking of enlisting. Maybe they're, should I do it? Should I not? That's a tough decision. Okay. Circumstances could be different for anybody, but any advice on how to make the decision easier, whether it's to do it or not to do it? Any input in that?
To make your decision easier,
they're in the middle. Should I do it? Should I not? I'm leaning towards doing it. Then another day I'm leaning towards not. 50-50.
I think it's going to come down to why you're thinking about doing it in the first place. If it's strictly about the money, then go for it, because you know there are a lot of benefits to being in the service, a lot of things that you get for free, a lot of things that you can get, like, you know, that's not so much red tape on once you've been in the service. But if you don't really necessarily know why you're signing up, I think that's probably what you should figure out first. Figure out why you want to do this first, because if you get into this and you don't know where you're going to be miserable, like you're going to be completely miserable. So general advice, just make sure you know why you're signing up. And once you know that, then I say if you still want to do it after you figured it out, go for it. And if you don't, there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody's not meant to fight in wars, not those type of wars anyway.